Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Christine Wyatt, the Vice President of Sales with ExamSoft, and here with me today our presenter is Patrick Chad. Patrick is the Manager of Academic Systems and Educational Technology at the School of Osteopathic Medicine at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. So Patrick's going to be talking about their process and their journey today. And if you would, I would like for everybody to please hold your great questions, jot those down. Patrick's going to leave time at the end of his presentation to address as many of those as we possibly can. And with that, I'll give it over to Patrick.
Great, thank you. Like Christine said, this is basically a presentation on how we implemented e-assessment at the School of Osteopathic Medicine. So without any further ado, I'll get started. Let's see if my e-assessment, in its broadest sense, e-assessment is the use of information technology for any assessment-related activity. The term e-assessment is becoming widely used as a generic term to describe the use of computers within the assessment process. This presentation used to be called computer-based training. However, these terms are becoming synonymous: computer-based assessment, computer-based testing, and e-assessment. And assessment seems to be the buzzword. E-assessment can be used to assess cognitive and practical abilities. Cognitive abilities are assessed using e-testing software. And this presentation is really about how we selected and implemented our e-testing software at the school. In the presentation, I'm going to cover the advantages of e-assessment, the e-assessment criteria that we used, how we implemented it, and what the challenges were for our implementation. The advantages is that we can include multimedia. As a medical school, a lot of times we'll do exams that require the use of graphics, histology, microscopy, and so being able to put graphics into a testing software is valuable to us. It reduces paper costs. We get immediate scoring as soon as the exam is uploaded. It's automatically scored, and faculty can see how students did, and it's just been a great asset in terms of having the software. Immediate feedback. We also have faculty who wanted to be able to give an exam and then immediately do a review, and with e-assessment software you can do that because once the exam is uploaded, it's scored, and so the review can go on immediately right after the exam. We are an osteopathic school, and our medical school licensing board is the NBLME, the National Board of Osteopathic Medical Examiners. Our students take a series of 3 computer-based licensing examinations throughout their education, similar to the USMLE, and so therefore we needed to have a testing environment that mimicked what they actually did for their licensing boards, and this was a request that came from both the faculty, the academic affairs department, and also from the students themselves. COMLEX exam elements. The COMLEX is a time-secure computer-based exam. COMLEX exams have questions from a number of subject areas all on one exam, so they're multidisciplinary. One exam will have questions about cardio and pulmonary and endo, a number of different topics, and so we needed to be able to do that with our software. COMLEX also grades each topic within the exam separately, as well as the exam as a whole, so when the reports come out, the students can see their overall grade as well as their grades within all of the different topics that were given in the exam. And the COMLEX platform, while it's software-based, is not available for anybody to use. It's proprietary, and they use it basically to deliver the COMLEX, and they don't offer it to anybody to use. Before we did computer-based testing, we had Scantrons, which were the question booklet, machine-readable answer sheets, and that's how we did every single exam for both schools, for first and second year. To analyze the answers from the answer sheets, they had to be scanned into a dedicated dedicated scanner. which uses the image-based data collection software. And our institution actually had one scanner. It was an old scanner. It had really seen better days. And one scanner for both schools just became a crazy process after an exam was given. We also had a lack of support resources. There was one staff person in academic affairs to process all of the exam sheets for every exam, and this was not her primary job function. So this really delayed the ability for faculty to get exam results once an exam was given. And some of the scanning issues that we had, aside from the one staff person to do the scanning, it took over 20 minutes to grade one exam for one class. The student's failure to put in their correct name, ID number, led to issues with administration and faculty. Students failing to fill in the answer sheet correctly, circling them and filling in the circles correctly required hand grading by faculty. And then the ability to export grades for multiple disciplines on a combined exam wasn't available. And so the administrator had to rerun the exam for each section of the exam that was given. So based on all of the feedback from faculty, staff, students, our curriculum committee, we wanted to transition to a computer-based testing platform which emulated the COMLEX medical board exam, and we decided that we had to meet the following criteria, which I'm going to go through in the presentation. Ease of use. The platform had to be easy to use with minimal training, and we had to have the ability to get it up and running very quickly. We only were allowed one full-time employee at about 25% available to implement any system that we picked, and this was to include administration, implementation, and the training of staff and faculty. We are a state institution, so we're very aware of budget and FTE resources. So this was basically the parameters that I was given to find a solution. The platform had to be secure, and it had to have a dedicated testing environment with no access to the internet or any of the files on the student's laptop or lab PC on which the exams were given and the student was taking. So the system had to be completely locked down so that only the exam was available. There were some LMSs who had the ability to do a secure browser or lock down the system partially, but it really didn't prevent the students from getting to their files, getting to their systems. So we really needed to make sure that this platform was secure and that there was going to be no internet access and no access to any of the files on the student's system. Question requirements. Faculty wanted question banks so they could start stockpiling questions and wouldn't have to rewrite questions for every exam. They wanted to be able to make question sets. They wanted the questions to be randomized. They wanted to be able to group, tag, and categorize questions. And they also needed the ability to remove any questions from scoring on the fly. So if there was a bad question that everybody got wrong, they could just remove it so that it wouldn't be a part of the report. The platform had to be scalable. We have a couple of programs which have just a handful of students, and then we have the first and second year which have now 170 students, but we do have PBL and pre-matriculation, and they're just a handful of students. So we had to be able to give just a handful of exams or to give the full gamut of 170 exams, and on any given day, both classes had to take exams. So that was, 340 exams at one time. The exams needed to be able to be delivered via the lab computers and also the test taker's own laptops. Our students bring in their own laptops. We've subsequently gone to an issued laptop program, but it had to be delivered via the student's laptop, and also we had a segment of test takers who took the exams via the lab computers, and so they had to be able to be delivered from there as well. We had to be able to deliver the exams in any number of differently configured existing classrooms. We have a huge auditorium. We have a couple of smaller classrooms. We have a histology classroom. All of our classrooms are different different sizes, different configurations, and we needed to be able to give exams in all of those rooms without any issues. Minimal support resources, I've touched on that already. Basically, one FTE was going to be provided to give the majority of the support, with maybe a single resource or another person as a part-time backup, but ultimately they wanted one person to be able to handle all of the support resources. Multidisciplinary exams. The platform had to have the ability to deliver multidisciplinary exams, and this was a requirement that we just couldn't get by. We had to be able to score the entire exam and also to score the individual sections separately. Robust reports. The software had to provide robust reports, be able to do question analysis, category reports, exam taker reports, any number of configurations. They ultimately wanted the ability to pick and choose what kind of reports they wanted to run, what kind of data they wanted. So any platform that we chose had to have the ability to have robust and flexible reports. Minimal student training. The students would have to be trained during orientation week, and the time slot that we were given was 1 hour. And in this time period, we had to be able to orient the students. We had to install the software. We had to run them through an orientation, give a mock exam, have them up and running within that 60-minute time period. So we had a number of e-assessment, computer-based exam vendors that we considered. We looked through all of the different products and software, and to be perfectly honest, only one vendor in our selection process met all of the criteria that we required, and that vendor was ExamSoft. And so ExamSoft was chosen as the vendor for our e-assessment software. And ExamSoft, in matching it up to our criteria, we found that it was easy to use. They had a very secure testing environment that completely locked down the system. We had the ability to randomize questions. We had a very scalable and very flexible platform. The system would work within our existing infrastructure. It required very few resources in terms of personnel to support. It could create the multidisciplinary exams, which was a very important feature. It could generate robust reports, and it required minimal student training. So based on our criteria and how we mapped it to all of the vendors, ExamSoft at the time was the only person, only vendor who fit all the criteria. So just to go through the process for what faculty have to do to create an exam, it's very simple. It's sort of a 1, 2, 3 process. So the first thing that faculty have to do once ExamSoft is implemented is to create question banks. They can import Word documents into ExamSoft with questions that are pre-written. They can copy and paste from documents into ExamSoft, and they can create the questions directly in ExamSoft. So it's a very simple process for faculty to create questions and to make the question banks. And at our school, mostly the admins get all the questions from the faculty, and then the admins will create the question banks for faculty. Second is the creation of the exam. Once you have the question banks made, you basically pull the questions for the exam from the question bank, and you set the exam parameters, some of which are whether you want the questions randomized, the length of the exam, if you want a timed exam, if you don't want a timed exam, and then you basically set the exam download and the exam start password, and then the exam is ready to be given. And we do even have faculty now who will work on an exam up to the night before or the morning of, before they are ready to release it to the students as an exam. So it's been a really good, flexible software, and faculty can work on the exams up until the last minute. So, and the last process is once the question banks are created, faculty select their questions for the exam, and they create the exam, then the exam is ready to be delivered to the exam takers. So on the faculty side, the biggest job they have to do is to create the question banks. Once they're created, it's really nothing to create an exam and to deliver it to the students. On the student side, it's also relatively simple. They start the SofTest software, they enter the download password, The download password allows them to download the exam. The secure file is downloaded to the student's laptop, and there it sits. Once the exam is downloaded, when the proctor or the faculty is ready to deliver the exam, they give the students the exam password. The students put in the exam password, the exam opens up, and they take the exam. Once they go through the exam, typically our exams are 3 to 4 hours. They basically submit, upload the exam, and they're done, and they walk out of the testing environment, and the test is scored, and they're complete. So it's a really easy process for students as well. Once we orient them to how to use the software and take a mock exam, the only thing they have to do on exam day is come in about 20 minutes before the exam, start up the SofTest software, download the exam, and then take the exam, submit the exam, and they're on their way. So they've been very happy about the process. The ExamSoft suite of software, at this point, I believe that the only thing that needs to be installed is the SofTest test-taking software on the student side. Everything else is web-based, which is really, really convenient, and so faculty can get into the question banks and the score and analysis from anywhere that they have an internet connection. So they have really liked the ability to be able to work on exams from home, from any office or any location on campus. So the exam design is done via SofTeach. Exam delivery is the student software that's downloaded and installed on their laptops. That's SofTest. And then the scoring analysis is SoftScore. And then all of the admin services for both faculty, administrators, staff, and students is through the CHP, which is the custom homepage. Again, SofTest simply is downloaded, installed, registered by students on their laptops, and this is a software that allows students to take their exam. The custom homepage is web-based. It's specific to your school. When you go to the CHP, you can put in your school name, pulls up your custom homepage, and then you have the ability to log in and get information and help, and this is for faculty, students, and administrators. Once we decided on ExamSoft, before we could implement it, we had to do a pilot program. And so a third-year clerkship director, faculty member, and one admin on her staff volunteered for the pilot of the software. Before we implemented ExamSoft fully, we ran the pilot for 1 year with one of the geriatric clerkships, and they delivered an exam every month. And I think toward the end, they were delivering an exam every week. And during that entire year of the pilot, we had no issues with the software. The question banks were created, the exams were created, and they ran in a lab environment, and we had no issues. So based on the experience of the pilot program, we went ahead and we were given the green light to go forward with full implementation of ExamSoft for our year 1 and year 2 students at the medical school. So to implement ExamSoft, there were a number of things that we had to look into and make sure that they were ready, and it was infrastructure, the training, faculty and staff buy-in, and finally, of course, student orientation. So not a large list in terms of implementing a major application at the school. Infrastructure, for infrastructure to support any computer-based exam system, we had to make sure that our wireless access was upgraded and expanded. We reconfigured seating and desks. Since our class actually expanded to 170 from 150, we had to sort of reconfigure the rooms anyway. And because we wanted to make sure that there would be no issues with power, we installed electrical outlets all along the floor and in the desks for every student who would be taking the exam. So there's one outlet for every student in the testing environment. And the wireless, basically, we upgraded a couple of nodes, and that was all we had to do in terms of our infrastructure. Faculty and staff buy-in, we have a full range of faculty, from faculty who've been around for 30 years to brand new faculty who come in embracing technology, wanting technology. So the toughest part, I think, for me was to get faculty and staff buy-in, and so we implemented ExamSoft one department at a time. And the use of ExamSoft is still optional. We started with basic scientists, and then we went pretty much one department at a time in terms of training and implementing. And within the first 6 months, we had the entire school trained in the use of ExamSoft and had helped them create exams. And within the first year, adoption of ExamSoft went from about 10% of the faculty at the very beginning to 90%. And at this point, every single department uses ExamSoft in some fashion at the school. Training. Once you get on board with ExamSoft, they have great training. The administrative training for myself and my staff required about 3 hours, was done remotely. It's very comprehensive. And then we, as well as the vendor ExamSoft, provide training for faculty and staff. We have a dedicated person who helps us with the software. We have a helpline, technical helpline, an admin helpline. So there was plenty of assistance in creating the question banks, the initial exams. And then my group actually did the IT support training. So for every exam, we have the proctor, and then there's somebody from my staff, usually an ID, who is there for any issues with the software, and just to make sure that everything is going smoothly. And then we have an end user unit at the school, and that person basically makes sure that the wireless is functioning. So it's really 3 people at every exam, 1 from my staff, 1 from end user, and then the proctor or the faculty member for the exam. And student orientation. So once we got ExamSoft implemented, got all the training done, we got our question banks built, got the exams finished, students came in the fall of 2012, and we had to do orientation. And in our orientation, we orient them on pretty much every academic resource that they have, and then the final piece is the ExamSoft orientation. So we have about 30 minutes in our hour that we orient the students on for ExamSoft. So we take them to the exam taker's login page. I apologize, I think some of my screenshots are old. They've updated a lot of their screens now in the last couple of months, so I'll get them updated. But basically, we took them to the custom homepage, and we showed them how to log in. At our school, they use their A number and an assigned password, and they log into the custom homepage. Once they get into the custom homepage, they'll see their account information, they'll see their name, their email, their A number, their registration date, the version that they have. And as you can see on the left side of the window, there's a training video for the student, there's minimum system requirements, they can download SofTest, install it themselves, they can change their account info, they'll have an exam history that they can look at, technical support, everything is in the custom homepage for the student if they run into issues, as well as my group. Minimum system requirements, as I said, we have subsequently gone to an issued laptop system, so when the student comes in, they get handed a laptop with everything that they're going to need for their medical education, virtual microscopy, everything including ExamSoft. So the student no longer has to install SofTest on their system. It comes pre-installed on the laptop that's handed to them on the first day of orientation. But if they, for a couple of years, we did run where students brought in everything from netbooks to Macs to PCs, and when we had that, we would run them in orientation, and they would select the appropriate software, download the software that was appropriate for their system, and then, as you can see, download SofTest Windows, download SofTest Mac. They would download the software, install the software, register the software. And once a student registered the software, this is a SofTest interface, and you can see they have 2 choices. They can download an exam file, or they can launch SofTest to take an exam. So during the orientation, after we got them to install SofTest, registered them, we would have them download a mock exam file, and then we would launch SofTest and have them take a mock exam. So they went through the whole process, and we've never had a student who had an issue with using ExamSoft once they went through the orientation. And again, it was very brief. It was about 30 minutes. The challenges that we had implementation at the school were minor. When you think about any other applications that we've implemented, basically the biggest challenge for our group was to learn to use and understand the software as system administrators. But after we went through the 3-hour training and we started doing the training on our own, the learning curve was not bad at all. And then we trained faculty and staff, and they were different in terms of challenges. Staff who were familiar with computers really had no difficulty at all getting up and running, importing questions, making the question banks. Same with faculty. Training of the students was very easy. They understood the whole process. They downloaded the software. They took the mock exam, and they were ready to go right after the first day of orientation. Upgrading the infrastructure. We basically upgraded our Wi-Fi nodes and our electrical outlets. And then in terms of justifying the recurring annual cost, because we are a state institution and budgets are very touchy, we did have to go through a couple of hoops to get it justified and implemented. However, as we've used it now, going in our 5th year, it really is ultimately cheaper than any traditional exam delivery because we've cut down the number of FTE hours and resources that were needed. And now, for this last year, since fall of last year through to the current day, we've had no issues with ExamSoft. All of our exams have gone on without a hitch, and so everyone seems to be very happy with ExamSoft. Currently, we use ExamSoft for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd year of the school. 4th year is really in clinical rotation, so they don't use it, but the first 3 years of our medical school uses ExamSoft. The School of Nursing, based on our experience, adopted ExamSoft in 2011, and the graduate school dean basically really liked how ExamSoft was running, liked all of the features, liked the reports, liked the instant grading, and so they'll be going to ExamSoft in the fall of 2013. That's basically it for my presentation, and you can ask any questions that you want after Christine goes through some of the Blackboard specific information with ExamSoft.
Perfect. Thanks, Patrick. All right, so part of the reason we had the presentation today was to just give everyone a little bit more information about something we started this year, which is our Blackboard building block, which is a connector to Blackboard. So I'll start with just some of the faculty benefits, and then we'll go on to what the kind of nuts and bolts of what the building block actually does. So as I'm doing that, if you have any questions for me on this section or for Patrick on his presentation, please use the question box on the right-hand side there of your GoToMeeting and type those in, and next we'll answer questions. So we developed the Blackboard building block for a couple of reasons. A lot of people who were already using Blackboard wanted to use our software to kind of complement Blackboard. So here's some of the benefits for faculty in particular. It allows them to really easily either create or import existing exam questions using Word, RTF, or CSV. So you don't have to recreate all your questions if you already have them digitally in, say, a Word document or RTF. We can bulk import lots of questions at once, which is a big time saver. You can categorize your questions, which enables performance or accreditation reporting. You can have an unlimited number of categories. So this might be something like student learning outcomes, it might be Bloom's taxonomy, it might be accreditation, whatever you want to measure. It tells you how your students are doing, and it tells you how your actual question content is doing, and it does that over time. It allows you to tag questions by subject matter, competency, cognitive process, or previous performance. And of course, one of the main things that Patrick adopted our solution more for was to deliver high stakes, really secure tests, but you can also do low stakes, non-secure exams. So you have both options. After every exam, you have a detailed breakdown of performance by question type, so multiple choice, true, false, matching, and so on, by subject matter, even by question author, subtopic areas on an exam, or on a longitudinal basis. So as you collect more data over time, that becomes more and more relevant. It also provides immediate exam feedback for students and for faculty now as well. We just released 2 different versions of an end of exam report. One for faculty that immediately identifies questions that might be problematic that they want to review before they release results to students. It tells you right away which students are at risk and so on. Okay, Patrick, if you want to switch to the next slide. So this really talks about what the building block itself does. So it enables sharing of your course and roster information in Blackboard between those 2 systems. So those sync up between the systems. And you have 3 choices on how often that can happen. It can be immediately, it can be upon a change, or you can schedule that to happen on a specific date and time. It allows you to deliver ExamSoft assessments to students to Blackboard Learn course rosters. So you don't have to build a separate roster within our solution. You can actually bring that right over from your Blackboard existing classes. And it synchronizes those new courses. So it'll automatically know if there's a new course, if there's a course that's been deleted, as well as the things like students that add, drop classes. So you've got, again, some flexibility and some different options there. But basically, it keeps up with all the changes that are being made in your Blackboard system, ports those over to ExamSoft. It allows students to take secure exams in a lab. We actually now have a Scantron integration on their laptop, and beginning in January, also on iPad. And something that's just brand new, we've just done in recent weeks, is the ability to push ExamSoft grades back into Blackboard. I know it's really convenient for faculty to keep all of their grades in one central location, and this allows you to do that. So that's some of the benefits for faculty and the kind of nuts and bolts of how the Blackboard building block actually works. So now what we can do is actually take some questions. And Patrick, what I'm going to do is read through some of these questions. Answer all of them if you like. If you'd like for me to add some additional context, I'd be happy to do so. So here's our first question. What do you see as the advantage of using this versus going through the LMS like Blackboard?
Well, for us, and actually we use it both ways. We use it for the secure high-stakes exam, so we really need everything locked down and the student not to have access to their system. And so that was one reason. The second is that when we have LMS issues, or if we're switching LMSs, the question banks and having a separate exam software allows us to maintain our exams without any issues. And I don't know if there's any Moodle users out there who were affected, but currently we're using Moodle and Angel, and we'll be going to Blackboard in the fall of 2013, but Moodle was out for 36 hours due to a Amazon cloud issue, and so we couldn't access the LMS at all. We still had our exam schedule, and had our exams been in the LMS, we would not have been able to deliver them, and it would have caused more issues than it did. As it was, because we had ExamSoft separately, our exams went through on time. We lecture capture all of our courses so the students could still study and review. So for us, it was just a benefit to, we've had too many issues with an LMS integrated exam solution to continue using it.
Okay, next question is, how does this compare with Respondus?
Well, I'm not a big fan of Respondus, I have to say, but I don't really want to get into that. For us, it was just more the ability to deliver the kind of exams that we needed, which were multidisciplinary and which were, we needed a robust testing environment. And aside from the high stakes piece, we now have a pre-matric program that runs in the summer, and some of our attendees are online only, and so we've delivered low-stakes quizzes and exams via ExamSoft very successfully. So, you know, just the features in ExamSoft, being able to have the student download the exam at any time you want them to have it. For example, the pre-matric students downloaded all of their exams at once, and then they took them in sequence as they were released via the exam password. So for us, it just works better than Respondus.
Okay, I'll add just a little bit to that. I know that one of the things that when people are shopping around for some kind of solution like ours, they really like the fact that it's completely offline, and that's pretty unique. And I think that our reporting capabilities compete well with anything else that's out there. They're robust, but they're also easy to use. And we really built our solution from the ground up to make the data that you collect every single time you assess a student through an exam actionable. And that's really what all of our reports and analytics do, is to help you take some type of action. It's not enough just to know, oh, okay, I've got my report. What can you actually do to improve teaching and learning? So I'd say those are two things that we often hear when people choose us.
And that's huge for faculty. I mean, they really embrace ExamSoft for those features.
All right, terrific. Okay, next question. This question has two parts. And so, how are special needs test takers handled? If a student is allowed additional time for an exam, do you use the same exam, and can the time allotted be customized by student?
Well, based on our experience, yes, we do have a Center for Teaching and Learning. We do have some students who need extra time and some provisions, and so we give them extra time, and in many cases they kind of have a guidance person who deals with them, and so they will take their exam separately from the rest of the students. But we've had cases where we just gave the student in with the rest of the students extra time. But we haven't had any of those issues. We've had a couple of students who have had special needs, and we've had no trouble in addressing those or complying with those.
Okay, perfect. So the next question, this one I'll take. The question is, are there any plans to integrate ExamSoft with D2L? So the answer to that is yes. We did our first integration with Blackboard, and we're working on LTI integration at this point. So that integration will actually give us the ability to work with pretty much any LMS, which all of them do conform with LTI standards now. So we're going to start working on that at the end of this year. We should have our first offering shortly thereafter. So yes, it won't be for at least 2 to 3 months, but that's definitely on our roadmap. Okay, the next question is, how are grades entered into the system that generates transcripts?
For us, all of our grades are in Banner, and they are all put in by the registrar. She gets the exam results from us or faculty, and then she does all of the entering grades. We don't really have any part to do with that. So the way our system works, the registrar enters all the grades, and we just send her the grades from, faculty send her the grades from the exam.
Okay. Next question, Patrick. How are grades integrated if you use two different platforms, ExamSoft and Scantron, for instance, to administer exams?
That's really the same kind of thing. At our school, it's faculty's responsibility to do the grading, and so we have grades in Angel, we have grades in Moodle. The Scantron piece is also handy for those people who still use Scantron, but all of the grades are collected by faculty, and faculty take them over to the registrar. And so I'm really not prepared to answer that question, because we don't handle the grade integration piece just because of the way the school system is set up.
Okay, and from the ExamSoft side, it doesn't matter if your students are taking the exam on a laptop, a lab machine, Scantron, or iPad. All of those results can come from the same exam posting, and all of the data and then therefore the reports and analytics can all be accessed in the same place within our system. So it treats it like one exam. The system itself doesn't really care what modality they're using to actually take the exam. Okay, next question. So this is a broader one, but probably a good one if you're more interested in high-stakes exams and the integrity of those exams. This question is, please explain how the program limits cheating.
Well, for us, it's really made cheating almost non-existent, because the way our ExamSoft policy is, our exam policy is, the students go to the classroom where they're taking the exam. 20 minutes before the exam, they sit down, they open up their laptop, they start up SofTest. The proctor, once all the students are in, and they can only have their laptop and a power cord and an approved drink container, and then a piece of scratch paper that's actually given to them by the proctor, and they have to turn that scratch paper back in. No cell phones, no iPads, nothing else is allowed in the classroom. The proctor gives the download password, they download the exam, and then when the time to start the exam when it's time to start the exam, the proctor then gives them the exam start password. They go into the exam, they take the exam. All of our exams, the questions and question sets are randomized, so everyone is looking really at a different variation of the exam. And then, you know, once they upload the exam and they get the little green check mark saying that their exam has been uploaded and graded, they then are released from the exam room by the proctor. And we really have had no incidents of cheating. Prior to ExamSoft, when there were paper exams, students had copies of paper exams. We knew for a fact that they got out and in one way, shape, or form, but we really have not had any of those issues since we've implemented ExamSoft.
Okay, very good. So I would say it's kind of twofold. Just knowing it exists and how it works is a great deterrence for students. The actual system itself and the different measures that we're doing to lock everything down, and the fact that the high stakes ones are secure and completely offline help. But it's also a detection system. We do take a series of snapshots every time a student moves from one question to the other, if they copy and paste more than 500 characters every minute. So if you had any ideas or things about potential cheating, you can always go and pull that student or students' snapshots and logs and look through and see if you see any behavior that's questionable. So it's not just deterrence, it's also detection as well. Okay, the next question is whether the exam closes at the end of the time allotted.
Hello?
Hey, Patrick, I'm sorry, that last question was for you. Did you hear it?
No, it just went blank for a second.
Okay, sorry about that. Let's get back to the question here. Just give me one moment. Okay, so the question was whether the exam closes at the end of the time allotted.
If you have a timed exam, it does close at the end of the time allotted, and it gives the student a warning, and you can set the warning interval. So, you know, it does tell the student you have X number of minutes to complete the exam, please complete the exam, and then if it's a timed one, it shuts down and it reboots and it submits the exam wherever they ended up.
Okay, very good. Next question. What happens when a student machine crashes during the exam?
We've had that happen a couple of times, and the way ExamSoft works is it kind of tracks, I believe, where the student is up to, I think, 30 seconds or maybe even less than that. But when we've had systems crash, when they reboot back into the exam, and then the student can start from where they left off, and they continue the exam, and then they submit the exam. We've never had a student system crash and the exam. But we had one student had a very problematic laptop, and they crashed 4 times during the exam, and each time it just rebooted back into the exam, and they were able to continue, and they submitted the exam, and we didn't lose the exam. We have not lost a single exam given on ExamSoft.
Okay, great. So the next one actually was addressed for ExamSoft, so I'll take this one, Patrick. The question is essentially so power availability and distribution seems to be a potential vulnerability. So can I speak to how this has worked at larger institutions where the cost of infrastructure upgrade may just not be feasible? That's a great question. So in some cases, it's really your policy that will determine whether you need to upgrade your infrastructure. And what I mean by that is some schools will allow students to download the exam, and that's the one time they need access to the internet is to download the actual encrypted exam file, and then after the exam is completed to upload it. So you can allow, if you wanted to, your students to download an exam hours before or even a day before the actual exam is going to happen, because they can't actually get into the exam without that password, if it's password protected. Same thing goes for uploading. If you wanted them to complete the exam, you just give them, some kind of time limit by which you want that exam file uploaded, so they don't have to depend on your wireless or wired even system to download and upload the exam files, but they can. That's really your school's policy, and sometimes you can change those and sometimes you can't. When it comes to power, it's always a great idea to have power adapters for each student, but if that's not possible, if you're in a little bit of an older building and that electrical overhaul is just not within your budget at this time, it does show if the student is plugged in during the actual exam. You can actually see on the bottom right whether they're plugged in with their laptop or not. If something happens, if somebody kicks their power cord, or something like their power cord actually fails, or the electrical outlet fails, it actually switches over to the percentage battery life. So the student always knows whether they're plugged in to a power source or not, whether that power source is live, and if they're on their battery life, how much percentage they have left. So that's always a good thing for them to monitor. But those are a couple of things to keep in mind if upgrading your infrastructure is just too costly, or it just isn't your budget at this time. Okay, next question. So this question is whether there's a plan to integrate with Banner. At this time, we don't have a plan to integrate with any specific student information system. What we found is that almost all learning management systems will push their grades back into Banner or PeopleSoft or GenSoft or whatever they happen to be using. So through that broader LTI integration and the ability to push grades back to multiple different learning management systems, I think we'll accomplish what you're looking for, which is the ability to essentially manage all of those grades in one spot, the LMS, and then push those final grades back into your student information system, whatever that might be. Okay.
And Christine, about your Wi-Fi, about the Wi-Fi question, we did have one faculty member who wanted to give an exam in a non-Wi-Fi enabled classroom, and what they did was they just had, like for the bar exams, they just had the student required to have downloaded the exam before they came to the exam, and then when they left the exam, they had a span of time to upload that exam, or they would get no credit for it.
Okay, great. The next one is a really specific one, Patrick. So if you haven't come across this, let me know. I'd be happy to take it. So this question is about, again, about the integrity of the actual exam file. So the question is around between taking the exam and uploading the exam, can they forward that exam to someone else?
We've ran into well, you can take it, but for us, it's been a no. We had a student once accidentally download an exam, and because the exam password was sent out by one of the admins mistakenly, and so the student downloaded the exam before they pulled back the message, and there was no way that they could get into the exam, and then the student called us and let us know, and then we were able to remove it off of the system. But we have not had a situation where a student could get into the exam file.
Okay, that's great. And just so I can share a little bit more information on that. Every time the student downloads an exam file, we do capture their IP address, and when they re-upload it, we do capture it again. So there's just a ton of security measures going around, what we capture when the student actually accepts that file and then re-uploads the same file. It needs to come from the same IP address as well. So there's another layer of security. Okay.
Yeah, and then the parameter for downloading the exam, you can only allow, we allow 2 downloads of an exam in case they have an issue on exam day and they have to download the exam again, but you can really set that to just 1 download or whatever, right?
Sure, that's perfect. Absolutely. Okay, we've got one more question. So if anybody's got any last minute questions you want to get in, please type those in for me while we're answering this last one. So this one is actually about pricing. So our pricing model is a yearly subscription model, and most of our customers are with us for 2+ years. We typically will license per exam taker. So for a department, that might be 200 exam takers, and that's per year. So they can take an unlimited number of exams, and that gives you all the reporting and analytics. That gives you the item banking, the high stakes security testing, and so on. That's all one price. So it's per exam taker per year. And if you have a whole institution that wants to take advantage, we also have site-wide licensing options available as well. Okay, I'm just checking to see if we have other questions.
You know, we ran into a situation this year where the sim lab, our simulated lab, wanted to use ExamSoft for quizzes, low-stakes quizzes, and she was worried that it was going to cost her something. But because the first 3 years of students are all registered for ExamSoft, we just basically had to train her on the software, and then she was able to use it, so it was no cost to her budget whatsoever.
Okay, that's a great example. Perfect. All right, well, I don't see, I'm just checking here. Oh, okay, got one more. Can a student work ahead on questions and then go back to unanswered questions during the same exam session?
Yes, and that's a parameter that you can set. You can allow students to go through the exam, or you can set it so that they get one question at a time. I mean, there's a number of parameters you can set for the exam, and maybe Christine could answer this better, but the variations are kind of however you want to do them. We have some faculty who only allow, our biochem faculty only allows one question to be displayed at a time. Histology allows all the questions, and she allows people to go back and forth between the questions. They can strike out questions. They can do a number of things all through it. And then once the exam is done, and if they have time left, it also gives them the ability to go back through and look at all of their responses. And I do believe on the sidebar it shows which questions they've answered and which ones they haven't as well.
Okay, great. We've got another question. Does the proctor see who's taking the exam and who might be having some electrical or other issues that's making it difficult to complete the exam?
For us, yes, our auditorium holds about 180 people. We have 170 students taking it, and it's like a big auditorium. So the proctor's at the front, and then basically my ID sort of walks around the room. But if someone's having an issue, they just raise their hand, and then we go and see what the issue is. But, you know, the exam itself, as long as the laptop or the PC has power, there should be no issue, because they're completely off the Wi-Fi, so it's really just a static machine plugged in, running along. So unless they're running on battery power or there's a problem with the outlet, there really should be no issue with power in the exam.
Okay, very good. So we got one last question that I'll take here. It's directed toward ExamSoft. Is there a tutorial or a document about all the security measures offered that I can pass along to my superiors or faculty committees? Absolutely, Carmen, I'll make that available to you, no problem. All right, well, that's all the questions that we have today. We've covered a lot of ground. Thank you again, Patrick, for being such a great host for this presentation. If anybody wants to get the recording of this, we'll send it out to everyone who attended today. If you had a peer or a teammate that you think might be interested, please feel free to forward that link to them. And again, I thank you so much, everybody, for taking time to join us today. Thank you again, Patrick. And with that, we'll conclude the session.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, bye-bye.